Timeless advice for troubled times. I thought we'd just have open mic for a while. Just let you guys come up with some timeless advice. I would love to hear it. Uh, this last week I had a proud parent moment. Uh, so we've been working on some things with Luke. Well, I should say he initially worked on some things with us, and he had us convinced that we needed to buy him toys whenever he wanted toys. Amazing idea, Luke. But we shifted that to we would love for you to buy toys with your money. And so we showed him that the way to do that is you do some chores, and we have a little chart set up. And if you do enough chores, that you get money to put in a jar. We have 3 different jars: a give jar, a save jar, and a spend jar. So we've been teaching him how to do that and place your money where it goes and where it belongs. And then eventually he saved up enough money. This was exciting this week. He saved up enough money to finally buy the toy that he's been wanting for a while. So it showed up, and then I had him count out all the money and pay me back for it because he thought the internet money doesn't count. He's like, well, you bought it on the internet. It doesn't count. And I was like, still has to come from somewhere, bud. But it was fun. We had this big, huge moment where he actually had worked toward, invested in, he'd done the parts necessary in order to get the payoff. So he's learning that life is connected, that there's positive and negative consequences for our decisions and our choices. Essentially, it's sowing and reaping. Whatever you plant is going to grow up to something. And hopefully we make good choices on what we're planting. Most of us in the room are probably old enough that we've been through some stuff before, and you probably would look back on your life and look back at specific decisions and moments, and you would say, I'm so glad that we did that. When we were parenting, when we were early on in our marriage, when we were trying to figure out finances, when we were trying to figure this out, I'm so glad that we did fill in the blank. Or you might also have some stories of hindsight. I wish we had. I knew that we should, and we didn't. I wish that we had. Or maybe it's a little bit different. Glad that we didn't do that thing that we almost did. We got right up to it and then decided, no, I don't think that that's what we need to be doing right now. And we stepped back from it, and I'm so glad that we did. Or maybe looking back, you thought, I really wish we hadn't stepped all the way into that scenario and that circumstance, because now I'm dealing with the repercussions of it. And they're not what I hoped they would be. You see, the reality is that today's decisions become tomorrow's realities. We've made it through, we wade through our consequences as adults for our younger years, the years prior. We're dealing with it right now. And while we're dealing with it, some of us are trying to teach our kids not to have to deal with it and wade through the way that we've been. It's like, man, buddy, this is a thing that I've been dealing with. If you could just avoid this, that'd be great for your life. There's a few things, especially as parents, we want to instill this early on. So we say things like this. These grades count. They count. They matter. Yes, absolutely they do. You're like, when am I ever going to use this again? They matter now. They matter. And I know, Luke, he's in 2nd grade, so don't tell him this. They don't matter a whole lot right now. But it sets the pattern, right? It sets the tone. It sets the behavior, the habits for his future that we want him to learn, to get into the rhythm of. This is how you walk forward. This is how you do this. And it's important. It's really important. Because your academic decisions now determine your academic options later. Some of you have experienced that. Where you're like, you know what? I wanted to be a doctor, but I never went to school. So guess I didn't get to do that. Right? It opens doors that you would not otherwise have open to you. And you don't have to go to school. It's not like that's the only way to go through life. And there's plenty of opportunities, and there's plenty of other jobs and careers and things that are wonderful and amazing. But the opportunity requires the input of the grades to start with. And it opens doors even relationally. I mean, when you put the time and effort into becoming the person that you want to become, eventually you meet the type of person that you want to meet. I think back to my meeting Amy. There's so many things that had to fall perfectly into place. And even when I met her, I had to be I had to be a certain type of person that she just didn't ignore, right? I mean, I had to be good enough to like I had to be considered. If I hadn't been that type of person, she would never have considered me. I mean, let's be honest, it took me a few years. Like we were good friends for like 3 years before I was considered. But it's great. We worked it out. It's ended up being wonderful. But this is what I have in the back of my head with Luke, right? Because all of these seemingly small things, like getting the grades and working on school right now, making sure that you're reading, making sure that you're doing math, you all of this figured out, that leads somewhere. Because if you do good enough now in school, eventually maybe you get into a college that you want to go to. And if you prioritize your development, if you prioritize faith, maybe that turns you into and grows into a person that you want to become. And that opens up relationship doors. And your career is dependent on these choices that you're making now. Your marriage is dependent. That foundation for your marriage is set before you're ever married. You know, I've heard it said before that most of the time, you don't have marital problems, you have individual problems that you drug into marriage with you. And this is what we're working on now. You know, you even have, this has been one of the greatest gifts that God has given me in my life. It was one that I didn't even expect, didn't even know existed. And that is the relationship that I have with my in-laws. Now, I knew what I was getting with Amy. Like I said, we've been friends for a long time. She's amazing, incredible. All of the, like, you describe her as the best ever, and it's like, yep, that fits. She's awesome. It's just the way it is. I didn't know the gift that I was getting with her parents. I They have influenced me, they have affected me, they have encouraged me, they have challenged me. I am I am partly who I am today because of these people right here in the front row. And I'm so grateful. I did not realize that God had that gift for me, hanging in the balance of this decision to marry Amy. It would have made it like way easier to start with. It would never have been like, I think that's who. It's like, no, that's absolutely, you need to do this. Which is why it's a big deal for Luke. It's like, man, let's be honest, buddy. You're going to have some in laws someday. And I hope you choose well because we have a pretty good thing going with our family. So your grades ultimately determine my future happiness, Luke. So figure it out. Now, that is a slight exaggeration, just a little one. However, it underscores the connectedness that we experience and that is just true in life, right? Because not only will you be glad that you did to make these decisions, these choices, you'll be glad you did, absolutely. Also, others will be glad you did as well. It affects other people around you. Your decisions not only affect your future, they also affect others' futures too. Today's decisions impact our tomorrows and others' tomorrows as well, which is a really big deal because we're rarely happier than our relations are healthy. Think about that. I should leave that up on the screen like all morning long just to see that ongoing. Think about that. Evaluate that in your life. You can have some really, really difficult things happening to you, circumstances just all over the map. But if your relationships around you are healthy and strong, you can wade through it. You can make it through to the other side. You can be strong in the midst of the chaos. However, flip that around. Life can be going great. Work can be wonderful. Everything else can be great. But if your relationships are unhealthy, everything else is off. Is that true? In fact, you might be here this morning, you're like, you know what though? I can justify my choices. I can tell you exactly why I made those choices, why I believe that, why I can do that. It has nothing else to do with them. Well, let me just add a little bit of insight for you. You can justify your choices, but if it's affecting the relationships that you have, you may want to reconsider your choices because your relationships matter. And what you do next matters. And what you're doing now matters. You don't make these choices in a vacuum where it's only you in there. There's other people and other things are affected by it. Now, I have to be, careful here. I understand that there may be some people in the room that struggle with decidophobia, which is a real term, and it means that you have a fear of making decisions. I get that. That's a real thing. People have this fear, this anxiety, and you're like, Andrew, you're not helping out this morning. You're right. Because what these choices that you're coming up against, that you're thinking, that you're evaluating, they matter a lot. So we better make the best decision possible. Every single season sets the stage for the next season. Throughout the series, we're going to be discussing some very unoriginal, you've probably heard this information before, but very unoriginal, you'll be glad you did, advice. These aren't commands, they're not laws, they're not moral or ethical imperatives. It's not a matter of sin. It's not, do I have to, or is it law, is it a legal issue? It's not any of that. It's not rules. That's not what it is. We like rules. We're pretty clear on rules. We like rules because we want to be able to tell everybody else that they're not obeying the rules. That's right. We really like the rules. Because I'm inside the lines and you're outside the lines, so you need to fix your behavior. That's why we like rules. But here's the thing. When you think back to your greatest regrets in your life, like the moments that you're like, oh, that one stings. I don't really tell a whole lot of people about that, whatever that is, because you don't want to even remember it. But when you think back to those greatest regrets, you violated, you broke, you ignored one of those rules. But you're like, exactly, so we should be talking about rules. But here's the thing, that what we're talking about is so important. Because when breaking a rule broke your heart, broke someone else's heart, maybe broke your bank account, whatever it might be, I don't know. But the advice that we're talking about actually keeps you, it protects you from breaking those rules. So yes, we don't want to break the rules. We don't want to break those commands. We don't want to step across the line. But the advice that we're talking about this morning and throughout the series are going to keep you back from it. They're going to protect you from it. It's kind of, they sit in between the rules, so to speak. Ultimately, what we're talking about is wisdom. It's wisdom. I once heard someone describe it this way, and I thought it was pretty good, so we're going to use it as our definition throughout the series. Insights informed by the knowledge that life is connected. That today and tomorrow, there's a very specific connection between it. And that's our decision that we make today. How often do we hear about people that they find themselves in a situation or circumstance that they just do not want to be in? And they're in a panic. They're like at a dead end, and they don't know how to go anywhere else other than forward, and they just keep on running into the wall. How do I get out of here? What's the way forward? Unfortunately, a better question is, how did we get here? Right? In order that we stop falling in those pitfalls. Like, how do we avoid that altogether? We'll figure out our way, but what got me here to start with? Well, the answer is your path of decisions. That you weren't magically transported to this spot. It wasn't like you just fell into it and all of a sudden, whoops, how'd I get here? No, you made 13 decisions that led you specifically to here. And this is a really big idea for us this morning. Don't trade what you want most for what you want now. So often we do this. We have the big goals, but they're out in the future. They're way down the road. We have no idea how we're going to get there, but it'll happen somehow, some way. And yet we make choices and decisions today that puts us at odds with our goals. They move us away, right? Maybe financially. Your today's wants rob you of tomorrow's goals. If you're a student or if you're, in the middle of a career right now, your shortcuts that you're trying to take today eventually become hurdles for where you want to end up tomorrow. Relationally, within relationships, the easy way out, the avoidance thing that we do right now because we just don't want to ruffle feathers. We don't want to have that conversation. We're not ready for it yet. So I'm just going to bypass this, avoid this, sweep it under the carpet. Just take the easy way out. That is going to exponentially complicate things tomorrow. Right? To ignore this advice that we're going to be talking about. It's not wrong. It's not a moral imperative. Like I said, it's not whether it's moral or immoral. It's not whether it's legal or illegal. That's not what we're talking about here. It's just a bad idea. It's unwise to ignore this. You know, you can choose to have happiness in a fleeting moment or long-lasting joy. Which one is wise? Here's another, this one's just kind of a freebie this morning, so just extra credit for all of you. We should fear being wrong more than you fear admitting that you're wrong. We should fear being wrong more than we do fear admitting that we're wrong. The amazing part in this is the moment that you admit that you're wrong, you're no longer wrong. You stop being wrong. You become right because you're admitting to it. You're agreeing with it. You're like, I was wrong. Ding, 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 ding. Correct answer. You can't grow if you're not willing to, if you resist admitting that you're wrong. You can't grow. That is a full stop right there. You can't progress beyond that. When we talk about wisdom, it serves us in two capacities. First of all, it serves us as a decision-making guide. It's pointing the way forward. It's shining the spotlight on things that we need to see. It's allowing us to find the pathway forward. The decisions are like, it's like the steering wheel of life. And our choice is, if we choose the left, we're going to go left. If we choose right, we're going to go right. Wisdom fills the gaps when you're not sure whether you should turn left or right. You're like, I'm at point A, I need to get to point B, not sure how to get there. Wisdom's like, hold on, exact. Like, let's punch this up a second. Let's see what it's going to get you step by step closer. So much of life asks the question, like, what should I do right now? Literally, how much of your life have you spent wondering, pondering, thinking about what's next? How do I do that next? What's next? How do I get there? What should I do? Well, thankfully, you showed up this morning. I have the perfect question to answer the question. In light of my past experience, my current circumstances, my future hopes and dreams, what is the wise thing to do? It clarifies it, right? When you think of it this way, you're wondering like, is it gonna work out? Is it not gonna work out? What's gonna be? If you just ask this question instead of what should I do, like the full question, you think of your past, what you've wrestled with, what you've walked through, what your experiences are. You think of your current circumstances, what you're currently carrying, and your future hopes and dreams. All of a sudden, clarity starts to happen. There is a wise choice, and there are plenty of unwise choices. So not only does wisdom actually serve as our guide, it also serves as something else. It serves as a guardrail. And if you've been around at Canyons very much, you know that we love talking about guardrails. And I'm not like a road worker. It's not like I just have this weird thing about guardrails. I love guardrails because it keeps you from the potential danger, like the catastrophic danger. What's actually dangerous, what's actually painful. You might, rub some paint every once in a while, bumping up against the guardrail, but you're not going to tumble off the cliff. Like, that's different. Right? So what's going to stop you from the emotional, the mental, the psychological, the spiritual, the physical danger? And what's going to move you towards health? This is what wisdom does for us. Like I said before about our greatest regrets. Greatest regrets are often preceded by a series of unwise decisions. When we have that guardrail up, it only allows us to get so far before we have to turn. Before we say, we're bumping up against that boundary. We're bumping up against that decision I made ahead of time. I will not cross this line because I know on the other side of that line there's something else. Now, you can argue all that you want about, how naive this is and how old-fashioned some of this is. That it's not illegal. We're not talking about illegal things. This is fine. I can do this because even if I got caught, no one would arrest me. Great. That's not a good way to live. That's not healthy to live that way, whether it's legal or illegal. Right? It's not about moral or immoral. These boundaries, these guardrails that we're looking to set in life protect us. When we start to make these unwise choices, it moves the guardrail away and puts us right on the edge of catastrophe. And if we make one more step that direction, we fall off the edge. Right? If you're here this morning and you know, I haven't even gotten to like the full message yet. You know, you're like, I'm wrestling with that thing, I'm struggling with that thing. I know I should stop, I know I need to. You're currently making choices. If you think back to this last season, you might currently be making some choices that are leading you to regret. So hopefully this morning and throughout the series, you're able to actually pause, get some insight, get some motivation, and take the steps that you need to, because what you're wrestling with may be the thing that defines the rest of your life. It may be the baggage that you have to carry along with you for the rest of your life. And hopefully, if you listen, hopefully, if you put this to action, you'll eventually avoid that. You see, wisdom highlights the danger zone and the disaster area. When I was in Bible college, I was down in Southern California, didn't live in the best of neighborhoods because I had no money. That's how this works. So I remember I was working and I would have to like walk along this pathway in order to get to my apartment, like park over here and walk like quarter mile there. And more than once, I was walking home in the middle of the night because I worked security guard shift, and there was a helicopter with a spotlight in the field next to me. That's what wisdom does. It shines a light on the danger. Don't go over there. There's someone bad in there. I was like, just keep your head down and walk real fast. That's my naivety. I was like, just avoid it. Just don't look. But here's the thing, what I know about culture. Right? We're swimming upstream when it comes to this. Because culture will bait you to the threshold of self-destruction. It'll get you right up to the edge. It'll draw you in. It pulls you in that direction. Look how much fun everybody else is having. Look at all these things, these bright, shiny things that you want, you need, you're missing out on. Gets you right up to the edge. And then condemns you once you step through the door. It gets you right up to the edge. And the moment that you take a step through the door, our culture, the people around us, are the first ones to say, what are you doing? I can't believe it. I thought they were a nice person. Why would they choose that? Well, because they made 25 other choices that led them right there, and you're okay with all of those. Just that one too many placed you in the seat of condemnation and judgment. Now, if you're wondering right now, you're like, hold on, we've been talking for a while, and I haven't even heard you say Jesus' name yet. We're going to get there. Don't worry about it. Where's Jesus in this? I'll tell you. Jesus' invitation for you to follow him is characterized by a life of wisdom. But if you follow Jesus, you're going to be living your life in the direction, in the way of wisdom. This series will be helpful, whether you are someone that is a Jesus follower or not. Whether you've wrestled with that line of faith, that decision to follow Jesus, and you're not quite there yet, that's fine. We love that you're here. Also, this whole entire series will be incredibly helpful for you. I mean, think about this, right? I already said it once. Don't trade what you want most for what you want now. That's just good wisdom. That's just something you can keep in your back pocket wherever you go, whatever you believe. And I promise you, that will benefit you in your life. That's worth the price of admission in my mind. And if you didn't pay the price of admission, there's a drop box out in front. I'm just kidding. I'm just joking. If you're not a follower of Jesus, like if that's not where you're at, don't worry. There's no obligation to act about anything that we're talking about. I'm gonna suggest that you should take it for a test drive though. Take it for a test drive for a while, see how it feels. See how it fits. Look at what happens because you live your life this way. You don't have to be a Christian to live your life following Jesus. Try it out, see how it fits. If you are a Jesus follower, though, this is the way that we follow Jesus. You can't live unwise and also be following Jesus, his direction at the same time. Those are two different directions. Wisdom is baked into Jesus' teachings. When you look at his teachings, it's in there everywhere. And for example, this morning where we're going to be looking at Matthew chapter 7, verse 24. This is in the Sermon on the Mount, which is, if you don't know what that is, there's a giant crowd, a bunch of people that came to hear Jesus, and he's kind of giving them his greatest hits. So this is where we're going to pick up in this process, in this sermon that he's given. He says, therefore, everyone who hears these words of mine, he's been preaching for a while. He's like, hey, by the way, everything that you've heard me say, whether just today or before, all of these words of mine that you hear and put them into practice is like a wise man who built his house on the rock. He's like, hey, if you actually do the things I'm talking about, this is the direction to move. This is how you live with wisdom. It's not a, also you think about this idea of building a house and on a rock. Like, let's talk about that for a second. Building a house is not a casual endeavor. It's not something that you're like, what are we going to do today? I got some time. You want to build a house? Like this, that's not it. It takes money. It takes a long time. It takes investment. It takes intentionality. It's a choice you have to continue to make. You can't make a decision to build a house yesterday and be like, think I'm done with that. You got to finish it, right? This idea of the rock, and I know today we don't think of like, where do I want to build a house? I know, we should build a house on the rock. Now, at the time, in context, it's very different than our, technology and what we have available today. In context, the weakest part of a house was always the foundation. If you have a poor foundation, it doesn't matter how beautiful your home is. The moment that there's a storm or something happens, the house, as beautiful it is going to collapse, right? It's going to be ruined. It's going to be dangerous. In their time, one of the ways that you can actually address the foundation of a house was to utilize a rock. And yeah, it took a lot more work. Yeah, it took a lot more time, a lot more blood, sweat, and tears to get that foundation ready and set. But at the end of the day, that would make your house that much stronger. We're talking about the foundation, right? Jesus continues. And if you grew up going to Sunday school, I'm just going to ask you to refrain from singing the song. So, the rain came down. There's no sing-songing to that. We're not going to do that. The rain came down, the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against that house. Yet it did not fall. Because, pause for a second. Life sometimes feels like it's beating against us. It doesn't matter how good we've been trying to behave and act and make choices. Life sometimes comes at you hard, comes at you from an angle you didn't expect it to. You find yourself in circumstances that are difficult. Some of the time you walked all the way into it, and other times it just came around a corner at you. You didn't realize it was there. Life is hard, and it can feel like something is in opposition. And when you have those hard moments, you're going to revert back to your foundation. That's what holds you in place. Now, why didn't the house fall down? Was it because they made moral decisions all the time? Was it because the builder was very legal in how he went about building the house? It's like there is no code violation at all. That has nothing to do with it. Right? The builder did the wise thing. It didn't fall because it had its foundation on the rock. Right? When the storms of life came up, it held fast and was strong and remained because of the foundation. But everyone who hears these words of mine and does not put them into practice is like a foolish man. Now, foolishness, according to Jesus, essentially is someone that lives life disconnected. You're just like, today feels like we're going to do this. Tomorrow feels like something else. I don't have to worry about my tomorrow. I'm just going to do what feels right in this moment. Right? So, someone who chooses to rush right now. We're going to fast forward this thing. We're going to get there right now. We're going to take all the shortcuts because we want to get there. Rather than figuring out the proper way to do this, the wise way to do this for a later, better option. Foolish man who built his house on sand. Now, as much fun as building sandcastles are, and they're a lot of fun. Love building sandcastles with my son at the beach. They don't last very long. As much work as I put into them, however big I can make it, every single next morning, it's gone. Now, look at this. Is this Jesus telling you you have to live your life this way? You can't do those things? You have to give up all of your fun? No. That's not what Jesus is doing. Jesus taught for our benefit, not our detriment. Now, discipline, living a life of discipline, it feels difficult at times. You got to wake up a little earlier. You got to say no to some things you want to say yes to. Like there's aspects of this discipline that I get it, they're hard. We don't want to do that. Yet Jesus is leading us in that direction. Why? It's not about him, it's for us. It's a gift to us. Here's what we know, that Jesus is for you, not against you. He wants to show you a better way. Something that's more, something that's greater. We say this all the time, that following Jesus will make your life better and make you better at life. Not easier. It doesn't mean that all the storms of life are going to be removed. But following Jesus will absolutely make your life better and make you better at life as well. Now, it might not be immediate. You might not decide like, I'm going to follow Jesus. I'm going to say the prayer. I'm going to do the thing. And then tomorrow you wake up and all of a sudden like life is just sunshine and rainbows and unicorns. I don't know. It doesn't happen overnight. It takes a decision over. And again, you're following Jesus and you're taking one step after another in the same direction. You know, it's kind of like a microwave versus a smoker, right? You throw something in a microwave, 2.5 minutes, it's pretty much done. You throw some soup in there, great, it's wonderful. It's good enough at least. You put something in a smoker on your grill and you're like, this is going to be wonderful. You open that back up 2.5 minutes later and try to eat that, you're going to get sick. That's what's going to happen. It takes time. But when you give it enough time, it's exponentially better. And now I'm hungry. Right? This is a choice that we make over and over again. I'm going to say no to my thing that I want right now because I want to say yes later on. I'm going to say no to the microwave because I know that meat coming off the smoker is so much better. But I can't put that meat in the microwave and expect to be able to have that meat on the smoker later. Jesus invites us to govern our lives, to make choices for our lives, about our time, about our money, about our relationships, and according to the way of wisdom, that we are to walk wisely. But this is what we've been talking about. This is what we're going to be talking about throughout the series. Knowing and doing. Two very different experiences with very different outcomes. You can know all kinds of things, and if you don't put that knowledge to action, it does you no good. Right? There's this level of, we think because we know it, we can just put it on the back burner. It's like if you have kids and you're trying to remind them of the thing that you have talked to them about that they need to do. You're like, hey, I need to, and before you can even finish the sentence, they're like, I know. I got it. You don't need to tell me. You don't need to remind me. I know. And then, I don't know if you've got to this point, but I sometimes say out loud, yeah, but if you know it, then how come you're not doing it? As adults, we do the same thing. It's not just about children. As adults, we do this same thing. We make this assumption that since I know, I'll do. But that's just not true. And it rhymes on purpose. I can know things, and it doesn't mean that I'm going to do them. I know that they're going to be good for me, and it doesn't mean that I'm actually going to walk it out and act and behave and choose to live life that way. Interestingly, knowing and not doing puts you at the exact same place as not knowing and not doing. Same result. In fact, it's even worse because one, you're just naive and ignorant. The other one, and I'm not calling you a fool, I'm just going to let Jesus do that. You're foolish. I mean, think about this. Do driver's ed teachers still need guardrails on the road? Yeah, because sometimes we go around the corner a little too fast. Doesn't matter if we know all the information, we can still do it. You know, what if you knew all the answers to a multiple choice test? You knew it all. The whole entire quiz, all 20 questions, you're like, I got it nailed. You get into the quiz and you're like, you know what, I'm just going to feel this one out. I know the answer, but I just feel like choosing C all the way down, see what happens. Nothing good. Right? There's a difference. The difference is not the possession of knowledge. The difference is made in the application of wisdom. We say this all the time. I mean, this is one of my favorite illustrations. Eventually, we're going to need to paint our house. I could have the paint sprayer. I could have all the paint ever. I could have extra paint. Everything ready in my garage. And that does zero good until I get the paint out and I apply it onto my siding. That's when the difference is made. I can have possession of it. I can know it. But until I act upon it, it doesn't do you any good. We don't need more rules. We don't need more laws. We need to actually put into action what we already know to do. So let me push it a little bit harder as we wrap up this morning. What do you know you need to do but aren't doing? What do you know? What knowledge do you have of a decision that you need to make and yet you have not put it to action? Now, just real quick, maybe I waited too long. No elbows and no side eyes on this. Right? Don't be like, I know yours. Because the reality is, most of the time we tell someone, I know I need to. I know I need to. But until you do something about it, you're living life disconnected. You know it, but you're not doing it yet. I did this the other day. I decided to tell my family on a Sunday afternoon we eat lunch together. And I was like, you know what? Those weeds are getting pretty bad. Probably should do something about that. I need to spray them. I need to pull them and do something. They're going to get way worse. And then another week went by and I sat down for lunch on a Sunday afternoon. I was like, phew, those weeds are coming. They're getting there. I should probably do something about that. I got the spray. It's in my garage. I got it. This is like 3 weeks in a row. Finally, I pulled out the sprayer. Got it all done. And guess what? It's working. The weeds are dying. It's amazing. It took me a while. And in fact, by waiting, it's more difficult. It's a worse situation that I'm in. Knowledge without action is a foolish man trying to build a sandcastle in low tide and expect to move in tomorrow. It does you no good. It does you no good. So what relationship in your life right now needs to end? You thought I was going a different direction. Some of you have relationships right now and you know they're not good for you. You know that they're difficult, and not just difficult, they're unhealthy. They're leading you in a direction you don't want to. Your friends determine the direction and quality of your life, and all of a sudden you're realizing, I have a friend that's leading me that way, and I don't want to go that way. Or maybe, let's flip it, maybe what relationship do you have that needs to be reconciled? And you know it. You know you need to pick up the phone and make that call. You need to have the conversation. You need to say the dreaded words, I'm sorry. Will you forgive me? What is this spending habit that you need to curb? You start off and you're like, man, I've been working so hard this week, the last month. I'm going to treat myself, treat yourself. I'm going to go to Starbucks tomorrow morning. It's wonderful, amazing. You love the caffeine jolt at the beginning. You're like, man, that was super nice. And you thought, that was so nice, I'm going to do it again tomorrow. And then the next day. And then treat yourself like one day turned into, that's just the standard. That's what I do every morning. The baristas at Starbucks, every single shift knows who you are. That's a spending behavior. And when you start to add up the numbers, you're not going to like it. That is a behavior thing that you know. You know. Now, I'm not against Starbucks. I like Starbucks within reason, right? So here's some unsolicited advice for all of us this morning. What do you know you need to do but aren't doing? Do it today. Do it today. Don't hold off any longer. You already have the knowledge. There's not more knowledge that you need. You just need to take the step. So take the step. Spray the weeds. Stop going to Starbucks, whatever it might be. Jesus invites you and me into a better way of life. Not sandcastles, house on the rock that's going to withstand the storm. That's better. It's harder, takes more work, takes more effort, takes more time. But you will be so glad that you did. The amazing thing is that Jesus, when he invited you and me, he invited us not to learn from me and just stay at the knowledge. He invited us to follow him. Apply his teachings. And if you don't know where to find his teachings, open up this thing called the Bible. The first 4 books of the New Testament, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. You're going to find some words in there in red. Those are Jesus' words. Read those things. If you're not even sure about that, you just keep on showing up here every Sunday. And I'm going to talk to you about some of his teachings. We're going to go through them. And when you do so, when you start to hear, when you start to understand, when you start to gain this knowledge, I'm going to encourage you. I promise you that. I will encourage you every single time to take an application step forward. And if you do, you'll be so glad that you did. Not only will you, but others around you will be so glad that you did as well. So as we finish up this morning, I've got some discussion questions for you because I love the idea that you would actually take some of these questions, discuss them, think about them, ponder on them, and be able to wrestle with them a little bit more. Keep the conversation going outside of this room. Think back to an almost didn't, but glad I did decision, or an almost did, but glad I didn't decision. What got you to the right decision? Is there something that you know you should do or should be doing, but you're not? If so, why not? Then lastly, regarding your answer to the previous question, does procrastinating have the potential to make a fool out of you? I'm not going to answer the questions for you, but the last one is yes. Let me pray, and we'll get out and enjoy the sunshine. Dear Heavenly Father, you are a good God. You love us. You care about us. You are for us. You're not in opposition to us. You're not trying to ruin our fun. You're not trying to take things away from us. You're trying to protect us. You're trying to keep us from the catastrophic decisions that we sometimes walk right into. God, I pray that we would listen to you. That we would understand not just the knowledge part of why it's important, but we would take the bold and courageous step to act upon it as well. That we would, in doing so, move in your direction, where you've invited us to. That we would walk in the way of wisdom, not of the unwise. God, I thank you for everything that you've done for us, that you've made the pathway forward and allowed us to make the choice to walk down it. God, I pray that we would. And I pray that today would be the day that we take that step in that direction that we've been putting off, but we know we need to. We pray all of this in Jesus' name. Amen. Thank you for being here with us. We'll see you all next week.